Hello and welcome to Slack Chat Season 2, Episode 18. I'm Stuart Winter, the developer and architect of the Slackware ARM and AArch64 ports. And we've got Brent Earl. Hi, Brent.
Hello. How are you
And
today?
I'm pretty good. I'm very good, Brent. Just been relaxing after a summer holiday.
Yeah,
All been good.
summer's ending here. There's a bunch of fires here. They're not
Like
as bad as
wildfire.
they were about a month ago, but like every day there's a lot of smoke everywhere outside. It's like it looks like fog, but it's smoke.
Are they farmers managed fires or are they like wildfires?
They're
Oh,
wildfires.
no. Okay.
Most of the smoke comes from California, so it's kind of blowing our way.
Oh,
But,
I see.
yeah.
That's not fun. It's been quite a while since we last spoke, hasn't it?
Yeah. Thanks for having me back on.
Thanks for coming
Excited to
back.
get back going here.
Yeah, well, there's been, I think I stopped working on the port in May, the start of May, because, well, basically, a whole load of hardware broke in quick succession. There I was, like, extolling the virtues of all this old hardware and how amazing it all is. And then it all died within a few months of saying that. So like all of my old 15-year-old hard drives just got disk errors. And then my laptop broke. It overheated and died. It's also incredibly old, so the fan had stopped working. And then my build machine for ARM 32-bit, that as I did a video on that one just the networking stopped working. And then all the problems I was having with the Rock Pro 64 were because the power supply for my KVM had stopped working. It was just drawing power from the computers that were connected to it, causing problems on the Rock Pro 64. And then the KVM finally died, and it took the other Orange Pi 32-bit builder with it. So I came in one day to find that the pretty much the balance of a reasonable amount of the build infrastructure was no longer with us, or was with us in a sort of semi-conscious state. It was, it was like, okay.
Well, the hard
Yeah.
drives I had plugged into my Rock Pro, the external case, like the electrical part of it, went bad. I had to get 2 case enclosures so that I could have hard drive for it. And I don't know why, if it was just I was getting static electricity, or I don't know what the deal was.
Yeah, I don't
maybe it
know.
was a Rock Pro. I mean,
It could be. There's definitely, I mean, the Muttley machine that went mad, that's completely broken. And then I've got another one, which it's the one that I told you before. I've reflashed the U-boot firmware to the SPI flash about 50 times, and that seems to revive it until you turn it off. So yeah, so I contacted the Pine 64 guys today and told them about Muttley, and they're sending me a replacement. So thanks a lot for that, because that's going to help quite a bit. Because all I want to do right now is, the plan is to finish the Rock Pro 64 support so that it's documented. Because you're installing it now, aren't you? You said, or is
yeah,
it
I'm going through it on my Pinebook right now.
Okay. So if you reinstall, well, actually, yeah, on the Pinebook it should be the same. I don't Certainly it works on the Rock Pro 64. So I came back after a few months and reinstalled it and realized that basically it was complete. I thought there was so much more to do, and actually there isn't. So
Yeah.
yeah, I installed it. I thought, but everything works. I went through thinking,
Update the
no, something's got
repo.
to be broken, and nothing is broken.
Yeah.
So I was really pleased with that. I basically just gone on holiday and just forgot about everything to do with it. And I was really quite pleasantly surprised when I realized that it was in a very good state. But I did try to install it on the Pinebook Pro to take it on holiday with me, because I thought I could use it a little bit on holiday. It'd be quite nice to work on it work on the 64-bit port on a 64-bit AArch64 Slackware. But it was really weird. I'll have to do a call with you at some point soon, once I've got some time to look at it, because I think you boot it and it boots Manjaro I'm pretty certain that's what's on it, at least on my one. So
Yeah.
then I interrupted U-boot and I used the serial cable that I got for it. The specific one, for the Pinebook Pro. And I got output on the screen onto my terminal, but it was missing, I think, every other character or something like that. Or every third character. And so I was looking at it, thinking this is a bit weird, and I changed all the settings and everything for the terminal settings, and nothing fixed it. So I'm not really sure what was going on. And then the kernel panicked as well, and I couldn't understand what the message was because of so many of the characters were missing that I really couldn't figure out what the problem was. So I couldn't, sadly, I couldn't install it and take it with me.
Yeah.
So it's good to know that it's still booting on yours though. So that's a good start. So it must mean I should be able to do the same.
Yeah. And I found my NVMe disk,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so it's all
Yeah,
good.
all of that stuff's in the installer now, all the modules and stuff.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, the only thing that's really left to do, I think, Brent, initially my plan is to finish off the Rock Pro 64 support, which for me basically means documenting the installation path, which is actually really straightforward, isn't it? I mean, it really couldn't be that much more simple. The only difficult part I thought was the installation of a U-boot that can boot Slackware on it. So I thought that was going to be complicated, but it's not, because it's just a one-time event where you'll install an image onto an SD card, put it into the Rock Pro 64, turn it on, watch the white light flash a few times, disconnect, but then DD the Slackware installer image onto your SD card, and then turn it on again with a serial console. That's it. And then that initial step, because you'll have a new version of the U-boot firmware on the board at that point, that initial stage is only a one-off. So once you've installed Slackware, I was thinking it's a really nice way of doing it, because even if you've already got another distribution, I know you've been looking at Fedora, haven't you, on there? So even if you've got that, this is a surefire way of going, right, Fedora's over, put in Slackware, reflash the bootloader onto that's going to boot Slackware. You've got a new installation. You've got the Slackware installer on an SD card. You boot that, and you install Slackware, following the documents onto a SATA or a USB connected hard drive or
Yeah.
SSD. That's the current. There can be other installation options as well, but I'm not going to document those personally,
Yeah.
because I like that one, and it's probably for all the people in the ARM world in the community have figured out how to set up other storage configurations anyway. So just having my aim is basically to use the Rock Pro 64 as as like a reference installation, if you like. You know what I mean? So it's like, this is
Yeah.
how
It's a development board. It's, it helps you get other boards running. So,
exactly, yeah. And this is how you can integrate it with Slackware. That's the way that I'm looking at it.
hmm
I think that's the only way of doing it. So yeah.
Well, I've just been trying a lot of different distros on the Pinebook to see how they work and what they've done, and I haven't found anything that runs as smoothly as Slackware, because they either have too many things running in the background, like with systemd, or there's just not very good support. So
Okay.
it's actually great. It's been working great when I get Slackware on it.
Well, good. Well, now you download the latest updates. Yeah, let me know how it goes. Yeah, so everything is up to date with the latest Slackware x86.
Okay.
So apart from Firefox and Thunderbird. So I just need to update the build script for those in the ARM patches, but I'll get around to that.
Yeah.
It's not important. But yeah, everything else is all there. So I've been because of the build infrastructure broke, I've had to basically put a pause on development. So I was still doing a little bit in the background, because I still had some machine that I could run. I managed to find so I basically had these two Orange Pis that were broken, and then I found out I had the Orange Pi version 1, which has 1 gig of RAM, whereas the one that I use normally, or the ones I use normally, have 2. So but I booted it, it still worked. So I thought, oh, I'll just do that then. I'll just keep it up to date on this one machine, but I can't test anything because I don't want to rebuild I don't want to reinstall that one machine because that's all I've got. So if you reboot it may not boot back. I'm not physically there anymore. I was in Spain, so I was very limited what work that I could do on it. But then guess what? Guess what happened, right? So I went to dismantle the Orange Pi. I bought a new one, so I had to wait as well until there was enough funds to buy some new hardware because I needed to buy another Orange Pi. So I ordered one. It got delivered, and I went to dismantle the other Orange Pi Zippy, which is one of the main build machines for 32-bit. To reuse the case for the new one. So I picked up the machine, pulled out the cables from it, disconnected the peripherals, and there was something rattling in the bottom of the case. And I thought, and it was not a plastic rattling. Yeah, yeah, right. So what it was that so I shook it around, and this was a piece of metal, right? And there was no way that anything could have got inside there because I assembled it, and it's a closed box. I thought that's not possible. So I looked at it, and it was actually a wash. It was a nut, a little nut, and. And what had happened was, or I guess what must have happened was, because the machine itself sits on top of what was a normal spinning 2.5-inch hard drive, and it builds all day for years, and it's been sitting there for years building with the disk just thrashing underneath it. It must have worked the nut loose. And so the nut was then sitting underneath the board and causing I don't know what the electrical term would be for it, but I guess like causing a short on the network adapter or the network part of the system on chip.
Yeah, because it wasn't grounded anymore.
I removed the nut, rebooted Zippy again, and the networking instantly worked. I was like, okay. So I thought, okay, well, I'm still unsure about Zippy, so I'll let it build a few packages and rebuild them on a different machine. And it just worked. It's been perfectly stable ever since. So now I was like, okay, I'll go to the other ones and tighten the nuts up. That's never happened before.
It's probably been there so long, what happens.
Yeah. So I found out that broke, and my monitor broke. It went on the blink. It just started blinking. It's like good, and then my iPad broke, and after that, and I thought, my goodness, what's going on? So I was like, okay, I'm just going to wait. So thanks to all of the patrons and the people who donated through PayPal, because you've resurrected the project. So I was able to buy new hardware and buy some new discs, and even put them on a UPS as well, because these machines do not. In my experience, some of the ARM hardware doesn't like the electricity on and off in a snap like that. It tends to damage them. So I put them on a UPS now as well, so they're extra protected.
Been thinking about getting a UPS too for all those things that I have running.
Yeah, I managed to get one. I was looking at them a couple of years ago, and the cheapest ones, unfortunately, didn't have the option. They didn't have replaceable batteries, and I thought, well, I'm not going to buy a UPS where I know the battery is going to die eventually and not be able to replace it. So yeah, I managed to find a reasonably kind of well-priced one where you could replace the battery, and then from that I power the router as well on there. So like even the internet connection is on UPS.
That's good. Yeah, I just have like consumer grade crap that when the power goes out, it all gets surged, and it's not good. I gotta get a UPS.
Yeah, I thought it was worth doing it because I've not had one so far, and I've been thinking about it for a long time. And I have had some ARM machines break. I had some Banana Pis get damaged because of that.
Yeah, it's good they're not like, $1,000 computers either, so you can replace them easier.
But that's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's just a bit stressful if they were supposed to be doing something and I needed to do it then. Then I have to wait.
Yeah, exactly.
The ship from China on AliExpress.com.
That's funny. Yeah. I'm afraid to order things because things don't come like right away anymore.
Oh, see, no, you have to wait like in the old days now. The good news is I've got Zippy working again, so I've also got I've got another Orange Pi plus 2E, so I'm not really sure I need another one at the moment though, so I might just keep it as a backup. I'm finishing off the Slackware 32-bit ARM ports and bringing it up to release candidate 1. Just need to finish building KDE. And yeah, I've got Linux 5.14, as you've probably noticed already.
It boots on the Pinebook, so it's great. Yeah, I haven't tried on my Rock Pro, but I'm sure it's fine, you know.
Okay. I'm really glad it boots for you, because I couldn't understand why I got a kernel panic. I thought I did everything right. So we'll have to, yeah, once I've got some time, we'll have to have a look at that. So I want to get it working.
Well, I know what it is already, I can tell you, but we can save that for another time.
Okay, yeah. Once I'm ready, I'll do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you can work on, just you see how it works on the Pinebook. The Rock Pro 64 works fine. I'm really happy with the stability of it.
Yeah. Did you have like the latest firmware and everything in it too for the Pinebook?
Which firmware in what? In kernel firmware?
Yeah, like all the in-kernel firmware and all that. Is it the
Well,
latest?
well, I don't. It's a good question. So I did check a couple of days ago, because as part of the update work, I've actually rolled through two. This is now the third major Linux kernel release that I've built in private. So I've gone through Linux 5.12, 5.13. I've had them both tested on AArch64 and ARM, and I've rolled through those myself. Everything works smoothly. I've managed to get the sound working. Well, actually, that's not true. I haven't tested that the sound actually emits a noise, but the sound driver worked in Linux 5.12 for the Banana Pi. So I've added that back in. And I don't think the machine crashes when you reboot it anymore as well. So that's good. Or rather, I don't think it crashes when you power it down. So that's good. And everything worked beautifully on both architectures. So I was maintaining as much as I could without being able to push it out and test it properly and stuff, whilst I waited for the hardware to arrive. Everything was great with those kernel releases. And then Linux 5.14 came, works perfectly on ARM, AArch64, there's no Ethernet.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in 5.14 that is good for AArch64, especially. A lot of stuff that was being like added but wasn't
Yeah.
quite in 13. So
Yeah, I've added I took the AArch64 patches that Fedora were applying, that Fedora are applying, as I usually do. I've got those, but the Ethernet wasn't working on the Rock Pro 64. You could see the adapter was there, but whenever you tried to get an IP address with the HTTP or even manually configure it, it wouldn't pass any packets across the network. So I was running TCP dump on it and thinking there's nothing appearing on this adapter, on this interface at all. But then I found that Manjaro had made a patch for it, I think the next day. So I've applied that patch to it, and that's the one you've got. So the Ethernet will work on if you put it on your Rock Pro 64. But that's the only problem that I've found in all of the three major kernel releases. It just works, and that's been like that for the last few major kernel releases. So it's really impressive. It's making everything a lot more smooth and reliable. Yeah, so the plan is to release Slackware ARM 32-bit release candidate 1 pretty soon, maybe next week. Then as regards to AArch64, is if you want to see how it goes on your Pinebook Pro, that's cool. And I'll finish. I want to complete the documentation for the Rock Pro 64 first, get that all ironed out, and then I'll probably release it. Unless, of course, unless the Pinebook Pro just works really easily as well, in which case I might just do them both at once. But I was also thinking about how to structure the documentation, because I thought, well, my original plan was to just have a page for the hardware model, so the RK33, what is it, 3399, and then have a few exceptions in the document. Okay, do this for the Rock Pro 64, do that for the Pinebook Pro, and so on. But then I was thinking it through, and I was imagining and thinking that I don't like that kind of documentation where where you have exceptions listed out like that as a sort of common way,
like little warnings in the docs.
Yeah, I don't like that. I'd rather just follow the recipe for that particular model. But then that makes more work on me to make two separate documents that are pretty much identical. But on the other hand, I'm also thinking that they're hardly ever going to change. The installation method, once it's done, you don't ever need
Yeah.
to revisit it, right? I mean, I haven't touched the ARM one since I did it.
Yeah, well, that's why I stopped doing the documentation, because things were changing too quickly and we were figuring things out.
Yeah,
So, it was better just to wait till it's done and then dock it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. I've done enough of it to pick it up pretty quickly and finish it off.
Mhm.
So yeah, we'll see. And then once I've got some times in the next few weeks, I'll have a look at the Pinebook Pro for myself, but I'll keep updating the kernels and all the packages and stuff and pushing them out
Okay.
to you. And yeah, and I'll work on the documentation. And then I was envisaging publishing Slackware AArch64 once Slackware 15 is released. But if it happens so earlier, I'll do it earlier. That's fine.
I'll be hammering on the Pinebook again to make sure it's doing what it's supposed to do. And I guess there's a wiki page that just isn't filled out for the Pinebook, right? It's just like the headers or whatever.
I don't remember, to be honest. There's there's definitely some headings for the sort of the sections that we need, and there is a little bit more information in there, I think, around the supported installation configuration in terms of, here's the type, this is targeting an SSD drive and you need to have a serial adapter and blah blah blah. So it's got there's a few, there is a what would you say, there is a particular supported configuration of it there. I think I've got the details of that in there already, which is the same as what
Okay.
you've already got, right?
Yeah. So I guess I'll do my installation right on the SD card for the Pinebook. Since that is going to be what most people do probably. And then I'll test the NVMe and then external drives too. So
Yeah, so it's the same as for, yeah, that's all the same, Brent. I haven't changed it. I think the only thing I changed since we last worked on this in May was uh, I've done some updates to the OS Initard tool, but
yeah,
I've made no, I don't think there's anything. There's nothing that functionally changes anything that from how it was before. I've just made some improvements, like you can now resize / boot from within the installer. So
yeah, I
because
saw
otherwise
pretty good.
I thought that was a good idea. I'm not really sure to be. I mean, I thought it through when I did it. I thought it's a nice idea. I'll code it in because I'll fancy doing it. But the thing is that in a way, it's not quite what I would suggest myself, even though I'm actually saying yes. The reason is because I'm thinking that what I'm thinking of stating in that documentation is that that SD card should purely be reserved for your boot partition. Because if you
Yeah,
start using it as a read write storage, you'll burn the thing out, and then that will prevent you from being able to boot the operating system. And so if you resize / boot to the full capacity of the drive, so in my case, it's making, like a 60 gig / boot partition, which, who needs one of those? But it's there. And that might just encourage people to use it for some other storage, which I don't think
you
is a
can
good,
have like
is a
500
good.
kernels on it.
Yeah, but at the same time, if someone's playing around with kernels and messing, that's a good point. Yeah, if someone's messing around with some kernels and the operating system ran this, maybe they just want to just have a few of those lying around, which would be far more helpful when you've resized it from 1 GB to 10 or whatever or 70 in my case, or whatever it is.
Yeah, I'll
Oversized.
probably try it off a 16 gig first so that I don't
Yeah.
waste my 64 gig one.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I'm going to suggest that you pick the lowest capacity SD card you can find, bare minimum being 1 GB.
Yeah.
That's my
Okay.
suggestion because it shouldn't be used for anything else. Really, I just thought it's a good idea because otherwise you some people are still going to waste. It depends what the lowest is you can buy these days, but people will still have 3 or 4 gigs at least, I guess, in some cases, just wasted. Whereas you may as well have it available in case you use it. As long as I just suggest that you don't use it as a read write storage for some kind of where there's a high.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
high
Yeah,
access.
and that's kind of why I was checking out other distros. I was trying to figure out what they were expecting things to be installed to. And a lot of them are doing ST and the MMC. So
Do you know? Okay,
it's
yeah,
silly, but
it's yes, I agree. This is a thing. This is to me because my background is technical operations for looking after production servers and things like that. I'm used to thinking about what these machines are for, and I'm used to replacing hardware. That's what everyone does when you work in that place. You end up pulling the hard drive at some point and reinitializing the RAID array. So you get used to avoiding those types of situations as much as you can. But what I've also seen in those distributions is that too, is that that the destination for the operating system is on a storage which has a very limited lifespan. So
yeah.
the MMC on the Rock Pro 64, I burnt it out by just building Slackware. I thought I'll just try it and see what happens, and yeah, it burnt it out, and it was only running for about a week. So if you have a server that has a high, that has a high or even a laptop that's constantly writing files, if you've got lots of swap going on, or you've got some software that's continuously writing and reading to the file system,
Or like
you're
building Slack builds.
yeah, or if you're following Slackware Current and you're continuously on the upgrade
Yeah.
treadmill, you're going to burn out the storage, and you'll suddenly find your machine won't boot anymore. It just die because I've noticed with these the MMC, they with a disk, a normal disk, you'll see the disk errors, and you can start preparing that. Oh, this disk, I need to get this out of this. I need to replace this disk very soon.
Yeah.
You make
SRD
preparation.
or whatever. We'll tell you.
Yeah, yeah, and you can prepare for it. There's always a little bit of time you've got. I found with disk errors, once a disk starts developing its first errors, you can still get your data off it in most cases. I found, but with the eMMC or the MMC storage,
Surprise. Yeah.
it's a complete surprise. Suddenly the machine is just gone into a peculiar state, and I'm looking at it thinking, how did that happen? And it's because, and then suddenly I start investigating, and it's the storage just went bad, just like that.
Yeah. Yeah, so
So
that's why I was like confused. The first thing I do is on my Pinebook, or what I did was I turned off the eMMC because that was causing boot problems too. Uh, if you
yeah,
wipe Manjaro from it, it'll cause boot problems.
I haven't watched
Yeah.
Manjaro yet. Yeah, you told me about that. I remember. So I haven't done that yet. I just tried to boot from I tried to boot the Slackware installer from the SD card, and that's when it kernel panicked, and I just couldn't understand why. But yeah, we'll have a look at that one, see what's going on there.
Freaking kernel.
Um, but yeah, so in terms of documentation, there isn't. I think it's pretty close to go. I think it's pretty close. I know what the target configuration will be, the one that I think makes the most sense. And
Okay.
yeah, and then I'll release it when it's ready to go. I'm happy with the stability of it.
Yep. Do we want to document anything with the serial adapters, like what we should be using?
Yes, I'm glad you said that, because I do. There's a question I've got. When I last tried on the Rock Pro 64, when I did the YouTube videos, you could clearly see that the installer worked on the HDMI. And then when I upgraded to the next major kernel release, I found that stopped working as readily. It would still sometimes work, and then it didn't. Maybe 30 seconds later or something like that. The HDMI would light up, but you'd miss the kernel booting on the screen,
Yeah.
whereas previously it was there. And I thought, but when you boot the OS, it's fine because it's fully installed, and it will come up, and you'll get the login screen. And I was quite happy with that, but not in the installer. So I thought, I'll revisit it to see how it works with Linux 5.14, because I've only done the installations remotely over the serial console at the moment.
Yeah.
I should say recently. I've obviously done them with I've done them using HDMI as well. But I was wondering if I can get it working with HDMI to only document the installation using the local keyboard and monitor, rather than document the serial adapter installation. I don't know. Maybe because the reason I say that is because both of the current targets, the Pinebook Pro and the Rock Pro 64, both of those have the ability to, and particularly obviously in the case of the Pinebook Pro, have the ability very easily to see what's on the screen and interact directly with it without the need of a serial adapter, which is unlike some of the other ARM, of the 32-bit ARM machines. So, but because, and ordinarily I wouldn't even have thought about it and just say install with a serial adapter, because that's what I do and it works for me. But the thing is because of the issues I've had with the serial adapters in the past, I'm not sure I'm at the stage where I'm comfortable even recommending one that works. Because you know the one that you recommended to me, well, I found that one, or one I think that was very like it, and I couldn't barely get it to work at all. And and I tried it on an ARM 32-bit, couldn't get it working there either. And I got a number of them, and I just couldn't get it working at all. And whereas the old really cheap ones that were about $1 off Amazon or something, the really cheap ones, they work perfectly fine with the Rock Pro 64s now, and those are the ones I have connected to my Rock Pro 64s on the server rack. So, and those machines are flawless. You turn them off, you turn them on, they reboot, you plug in the thing, everything's good now.
Yeah.
So yeah, what I'm trying to say is I don't know what I should do there, whether I should make it easy and just suggest the HDMI route, or document the. I guess my real concern behind it is that if people can't get a serial adapter that works properly, then that is a problem, right? Because
that's the main issue I was having to begin with. So
yeah, because you can't possibly guarantee that it's exactly the same one. The only thing that I have noticed is that on my laptop that passed away, that one was running whatever's in Slackware for whatever Linux. What is it? Is it for Linux 4.4 and Slackware 14.2? I think.
Yeah.
4.4. So, right. So it's running that, and the serial adapter drivers in Linux 4.4 don't seem to tolerate or support. I'm not really sure what exactly is going on. But put it this way, with Linux 5.13, I found that there was far less problems interacting with the Rock Pro 64 with any serial adapter. Well, sorry, with the serial adapters I was using before that had problems. So I plugged them into a new installation of Slackware with a newer kernel, and it worked much better than using it off the laptop that had the older kernel. So there must be some improvements with the serial drivers there. I don't know. What I'll do is I've got in my hand, I'm just looking at it thinking, I've got this one called by Moyina, which is apparently a genuine FT232 serial port. It does feel well made. I'll see if I can get that working with Linux 5.14. And if I do, then I could suggest that one, because at least that one,
yeah, it's the same one I have. It says Molina on it with a Y, right?
Yeah, and this is the one okay, so it is that one, and you get it working and I can't. So I wonder if it might also be because I haven't tested it since I replaced the PSU in my KVM. So I'm just gonna reset my expectations and just try again.
Yeah, it probably wasn't enough voltage or whatever. Enough
electricity. I don't know. So yeah, I'll try that one and then I'll document. I'll figure it out.
The one thing about that adapter is you got to make sure it's not powering itself from the port of the Rock Pro, because it won't work right.
Well, how would you know? Well, it shouldn't be. How would you know that if it was?
Every time that I restart it, I unplug everything from USB and then I plug it back in before I power it on, and then it boots off the Rock Pro's power supply. So I don't know. That's what I read online. It's kind of weird. I don't know. Because if you have it plugged into your laptop or your desktop or whatever you have to see the console, it could be pulling power from there if it's a USB host port. So, like a powered USB port. Some of them just read, right? Others do power too. It depends on your hardware. My laptop has 3.0 ports and they're all powered. So it was screwing up.
Yeah, so at the moment I've got the really cheap serial adapters that were not working with the Rock Pro 64 when connected to my x86 64 servers, which run Linux 4.4. They just don't work. Whereas I've got those serial adapters of both Rock Pro 64s plugged into the Orange Pi plus 2Es. So I've got my ARM AArch64 machines, serial adapters connected to the 32-bit ARM machines, and it works beautifully.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's the kernel or it's the hardware or mixture of both or what, but it's worked perfectly fine. So I've got it like set like that at the moment.
Yeah.
That's interesting though. So
But the only way to be really sure is to like unpower everything, shut it all down, and unplug the serial adapter from the port. And then once the machine has no charge in it, then you plug the USB back in for the serial adapter, then you power it back on. That's the best way to do it to make sure that there's nothing doing the wrong thing. So
okay,
I read that on the Pine 64 forums at some point.
interesting. Okay, that is interesting. I was just thinking it through, and it makes sense with some of my experience actually, because I've been unplugging things in a particular order. I just found that this particular order works, and it kind of makes sense now about why that works that way. I just didn't know why it was. I just figured out that if you plugged it in a certain order, booted it, it works. But now I've not had a problem. I was really surprised when once I powered externally the fan and the storage of my for my other Rock Pro 64, because it became unstable when it was building. I powered that externally, and now that machine works fine. You turn it on, plug the USB power adapter in, it works, or you have the adapter already connected, then you power it on and it works. So I've got to more confidence now that my Rock Pro 64s are stable. With at least with those serial adapters. But yeah, I've never had this problem before. It's like it's a serial adapter's nothing. It's just, buy one of these, plug it in, connect it up, run screen like this, done. There's no more complex. There's nothing more complex than that. This is like the first time I've ever had any kind of to even think about a serial adapter before.
Yeah, and I think part of it's because I think the Rock Pro 64 they want you to get the case with the power supply. So, like the big network attached storage case, all that they have on their site.
Why'd you say that?
Because I don't know, it's doesn't it have a power supply in it? It comes with it.
Oh, that's true. It does come with it. Yeah, it comes with one of the brick style ones.
Yeah.
I think, yes, I've got two of those. I just like
Oh,
them
you
because
mean the one with the cord or the one in the case? There isn't a one in the case?
no,
Oh,
no,
never mind. Scratch that.
no,
For
because
some
you
reason,
put
I
the
thought there was a PSU in there.
oh no, maybe if you're thinking of my video, that's an ATX PSU that
Yeah.
uh, I've turned into a bench supply. No, there's no room for a PSU in there anyway. And the board you position the board such that the power socket is just protruding through the case, and you just plug it in like you would. It just happens to be in a case. There's no adjustment made for positioning it in that case. They just look nice, and it's quite convenient to hang the storage and put everything in there.
Yeah, and everything fits. It's hard to find cases that fit stuff. The
Yeah,
different boards.
yeah, they're nice. I like those cases. I've only got things. I've got the lid off mine now because I've got these. I powered things externally, and I might want to replace the disc or get access to it. I've just taken the lid off now. It's more of just a shell, a bit of a frame, to hold the thing together.
Yeah, don't touch it. Don't pump it.
Yeah, just keep away. I should put a sign next to it. Machines are building.
Put it behind some drywall and a wall and leave it.
I'm not sure I'm that confident. Might still go and have to touch them. Well, yeah. Yeah, so I think that's right. I think the documentation is kind of mostly done. I need to think about the serial adapter. But other than that, should be reasonably straightforward and ready to go.
Yeah, and I'm gonna do my installation for my Pinebook over HTTP and just use a Python server, like you were saying, because I think that's more likely what people will do. I
Oh,
don't know.
I haven't looked at the documents for literally months. Is that what, did I actually document that in there? That was my plan,
No,
actually.
I think it was mentioned for the QEMU documentation, and then I don't remember if we added it to something else
Oh, don't know.
or if it's
Well,
in my own document. I don't know.
oh,
But
I don't know. It might be. I think I might have documented that already. Mate, it does ring a bell. Yeah, that's my intention. Because yes, I agree. I think that's how most people would do it. Particularly with the, well, yeah, it makes sense. It's easier if you haven't already got if you don't already have NFS set up, you don't need to. At least with the Python server, you just run Python inside the directory, and
yeah,
that's it. Couldn't be more straightforward. The only other installation option, oh, that's a yes, that's a thought. The only in terms of where the media, the installation media lives, the other option is to use a USB stick, put some stuff on there. But then if that USB stick ends up in the UDEV rules or anything like that, that would be annoying because I'd suggest you remove that stick when you reboot it. So I
yeah.
wouldn't put that in there. But
I
on the
could
Pine,
test that. Yeah, I could probably mount to like a local directory or whatever they have in the setup. But
yeah, actually, yes,
I,
I haven't tested it. I've tested installing from it, but I haven't checked what happens in the whether any configuration has
because
changed.
you know, like if somebody's like realistically, what's going to happen is they're going to boot this installer and probably install from like one of the Slackware mirrors. So
Well, with the Rock Pro 64, it has onboard Ethernet, right? So that's taken for
yeah,
granted, at least in my opinion. But with the Pinebook Pro, what network peripherals are available?
well, if you get it with the it's not really one, but it's a docking thing. Plugs into the USB-C port, and
Right.
there's an Ethernet port in it, and a few USB ports, and way to power your phone from it, stuff like that. So that's where I got that because I wanted an Ethernet port, but then it was also like people might actually buy this and just test it. But it works like even before 5.4 14, the
Hmm.
kernel, it was working before then.
Okay.
So
So,
the
so that's
Ethernet,
how you've installed it, is it? You've used the Ethernet?
yeah, or I use my
Ah,
my little external USB Ethernet adapter too. I have those.
okay.
Yeah,
Uh,
and the docking station is cheap. It's like $30. So I figured it's probably pretty easy.
okay.
People pick that up too.
Okay. I thought perhaps you'd used the wireless or something like that.
No, no, like I
Because
was
I think
using wireless because I was leaving the Wi-Fi kernel modules in my own RAM disks. So,
okay. Well, I was
but
thinking, I didn't think that the wireless would work in the installer anyway. There shouldn't be the right tools or modules in there for that, or
yeah,
firmware either, actually.
nope.
Shouldn't be in there. I don't think so anyway. Okay, that's good to know. So the Pinebook Pro, oh, yeah, okay, that's fine. That's a good idea. I'll get one for myself then, because I don't have
A
one yet.
docking station, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
I've got
good.
the NVMe. I've got all the machines sorted out. I've got an NVMe storage in there. It's all connected up and everything. I've got the serial adapter, and I think that's pretty much it, isn't it, that you need? Yeah.
Yeah,
That's it. So I've got those two. Yeah, that's it, really. I've got those two things. I've already got it all screwed together and connected up. So I'll just need to. I'll add that to the shopping list on the installation docs for it, and as
mhm,
a prerequisite, because that makes sense to me.
yeah. The only thing that's kind of weird about the docking station is it has a SD card slot, but not a micro SD card slot. So you need an adapter for your SD card if you're going to write a new SD image on another one. But
Okay,
yeah,
cool. Um, yeah, I even thought about extending the documentation so that it had documentation to install from a Mac as well. But I think that might be a bit ambitious.
an M1. A lot of people are buying those M1s.
Oh no, I
Yeah.
mean just in terms of being able to boot the Slackware installer on it, so that you
Yeah.
could connect a serial adapter to it and then boot it, install it. I did actually do it. That's why I thought about it, documenting it. But then you have to install this particular driver. So you have to download some driver software for the serial adapter. And I thought, I'm not documenting that. Just use a Linux box. You've already got everything right there.
Yeah, more than likely, if you're putting Linux on one of these, you're probably going to have Linux already.
Yeah, I think so. Uh, That's always been my assumption as well, actually. Yeah. I don't know if that is the case, that people who would be using Slackware ARM would already be using Slackware x86. I mean, I am, but I don't really know what other people do. Be interested to find out. Let me know.
I know that Phil was saying that he has Ubuntu, but it's Linux, so I don't know. I don't know of anybody who uses Windows to do this stuff.
No, I don't either.
Hell, I've got a Fedora on my laptop right now because I'm trying out Silverblue. It's great.
Well, can you? Where did you install it to?
Just I installed it to my my old laptop, not the Pinebook.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I thought you meant you'd installed it on the Pinebook.
No. I should have clarified.
Ah, I see.
I'm sure it works. They have a port for it, but I haven't bothered trying it.
Oh, when I first got the Rock Pro 64, I updated one of the latest Fedora images to make it boot on the Rock Pro 64 because they don't seem to support. Um, to be honest, I was a bit confused. I've looked at some of the other distributions and I find it sometimes a little bit difficult to ascertain what exactly is officially supported and what's not. Sometimes, and even for Fedora, I found that a bit complicated. I don't know if it's just me, but I couldn't see that they supported Rock Pro 64 directly, yet the for every intention by looking at their kernel package, they do because they're including the patches for it. So I found that a bit odd. I don't know if I just missed something. So anyway, I converted one of the latest versions of it into to make it work on the Rock Pro 64 and booted it and installed it. And I thought it was pretty good. I was
Yeah,
had my
Fedora, you mean?
first encounter with System D.
Oh yeah, it sucks, but
I couldn't
I don't
understand
know.
what people were talking about when they
Well,
mentioned
it's a lot more polished these days than it was at the beginning when it came out. So
right.
there's that.
Okay. I mean, it seemed to be okay. I didn't have any problem with it, but it's just that I wanted to do something really simple, like change the etc. resolve.conf, I think it was. And
Yeah, it's that system D resolve D or whatever it's called. You got to just change the settings.
I thought to
So,
myself, this is no longer Unix. Don't know what this is. This is not Unix anymore. This is
no,
Fedora.
it's
And I thought,
Fedora.
okay,
Yeah.
I don't like it, but hey, uh, I looked at it and it looked really good. It looked nice. It was really smooth. I liked it.
Yeah.
Um, and then I put Slackware on it.
No, I was just waiting around to see what happened. Uh, see if the port would go on and then wipe my hard drive for Slackware,
Ah,
basically.
yeah. Oh well, yeah. It's been a while since I pushed anything out. It's been a few months. There are quite a few updates in there actually. Since it was last publicly um, distributed, but I couldn't
Yeah.
push because I couldn't do the continuity tests on there, so I couldn't push it out. And plus the fact the I wasn't in a position to. This is one of the important things if you're running. But I know people uh, use this on machines that they care about. And if you push out say a new kernel, which I had, as I said, I've been through the last two major releases. If you're not in a position to actually fix it, if it doesn't work, because for me it worked fine, but there's always somebody who's got some peripheral that makes it break, or there's usually something
Yeah.
that break. If I'm not in
Or
a position to
an old hard drive or whatever.
yeah, or some module changes or moves the name or something like that. That used to happen quite a bit, although it doesn't seem to anymore, not with the latest versions anyway. But there's things that can happen that can go bad, and if you're not in a position to be able to fix it or help them fix it, then you shouldn't push it out in the first place.
Yeah.
So uh, yeah. So that's it's better to leave it in a safe working state than push it out in a state that's unmaintainable for a while. But it's everything's in good order, so
Yeah.
it's all pretty much ready to go once KDE finishes. And
KDE.
I know it takes about, I think it took 9 days. I think, was it 9 days?
When I
About
saw the
9 days.
changelog, I was like, okay, he's adding all these new packages for KDE and x86. I'm out. I'm just gonna wait until it's finished. I'm
Well,
just gonna
well, that was the other thing. I got the new hardware actually about over a month ago now. So I've been able to, in theory, be able to draw a line and push it out. But because because I knew there was another version of KDE coming, I just kept it off the side and didn't update it for a while, because otherwise it's this machine's then going to be building for pretty much 9 days. It could be slightly
yeah.
less than that, actually, but it's just so slow with building because there's so many components of it, and they're pretty big. Yeah, it takes a good amount of time to build it, and also because it's so big, uh, because it takes so long, the next version of KDE is already there. So
Yeah.
then basically all that people would be doing is upgrading KDE on an ARM machine, thrashing it. I mean, it takes quite a while to do an upgrade anyway. So I looked at it and I thought I'll just have to swallow all of these updates, and then you can just get the benefit of like 4 months worth of rolled up updates in one go.
Yeah. Well, it's
So
good we're doing this podcast then, because I think people were wondering what was going on the forums. What happened to everybody?
ah well,
I
yeah.
think I think you just had that guy with Slarm64 pushing out stuff right now. So
Oh, that's cool. Well,
yeah,
it's good though. It's nice. I haven't been on the forum for a while either, because I just was I checked out and did some other stuff. But I
yeah.
did look recently. Yeah, it's really good though. I like that. It's nice to see there's so much going on and people are interested in Slackware on the ARM platform.
Keeping people interested. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. I like to see that.
Mhm.
It's nice to have been. It have been like almost 20 years with people. Is like it's finally there's a community that's self-sufficient. I like it. It's like
There's not a lot of us, but there's some of us.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. There's some of us. Well, it's nice, you know. I didn't ever expect it to be making a podcast, talking to someone about this project, this hobby project. So it's
Yeah.
nice to see people are still. It doesn't need me to keep it going.
Yeah.
Well, to some degree, anyway. There's
Well,
always,
everyone's doing their stuff based on your work, so they have to do a lot of extra stuff to keep it going if you were gone. So,
yeah. Well, it's a massive undertaking, you know. Um,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, hats off to. I don't know his name. I think it's Mara, is it? But hats
Yeah,
off
I think
to
so.
Slam64. I mean, it's if you know, unless you actually do this for yourself, you've literally no idea how complicated it is and how long it can take. I mean, for example, the Ethernet patch that took me about an hour to find that, to finally
Hmm.
figure out where the Manjaro Git repository was, because I found one of them and it didn't have what I was looking for. It did have something interesting though, with a good benefit of having a look is that there's a patch that they're applying called the Futex patch, which according to the description in there, it improves. I think it's from Valve, so it improves something around gaming, but I'm not really sure why
Oh,
we
it's
you.
probably for Steam.
Yeah, oh, that's right, it is. But I'm not sure if
Yeah.
anyone would really be running that on Slackware AArch64. I did put it in the build script, a kernel build script to apply it, and then I just took it out because I thought, oh, I don't know yet what that is. But Fedora weren't applying it, so I thought,
Well,
if anyone wants to,
there's a there's an open source. Well, not open source, but I guess it is, because Steam's some of it's proprietary. But there's an open source software like Steam, but for that you can just get on slackbuilds.org,
okay,
Lutris or something like that. And all it does is search your hard drive for all your games and then displays it in a browser, kind of like
okay,
Steam.
okay.
But that's I mean, I imagine people would be using something like that on one of these smaller boards, or like a Pinebook instead of Steam.
Okay, I don't
Sorry,
know.
I used to be a big gamer, so I know all that stuff.
I don't, man. I used to. The only games I played was this. I'd play like Lotus Turbo a Challenge. Was it Lotus Turbo Challenge Esprit? You know, there's like the three versions of that. I play that on my
Yeah.
Atari ST or my RISC PC, the Acorn machines, and then I'd play it for about 20 minutes and just get bored, and then I'd play Grand Theft Auto later, and then just go off the map and just smash the cars around, and then get bored of that. I
Get
can't
them
play games.
following you, how like 100 cop cars and get out a tank
Yeah,
and
exactly. And then the helicopter arrives. That was all fun. I like doing that, but I'm not really a gamer. I just enjoy driving cars around, really. You know, it's quite funny actually. Do have you heard of I might have mentioned this before, I don't remember. It just occurred to me. The 6 degrees of separation. Have you heard of that concept? Where
no.
people Oh, okay. Look, Google it up. But in a nutshell, my understanding of it is that of it. My understanding of it is that you're. Oh, hang on. I'm gonna have to think how it works now. But basically, there's somebody who knows somebody you'd never expect them to know. Like you
Yeah,
like there's a relationship that exists between people you wouldn't possibly expect to.
yeah.
The 6 degrees of separation, and and my example of this was that there was this guy called Matt Godbolt, and he created the what was called IRC Liant, which is on this Riscos machine I used to use,
Hmm.
with the ARM machines, Riscos on them. And he wrote this client, and it was really really cool. It was like all written in assembler, and he wrote his own BBC Basic interpreter in assembler in his IRC client, as you do. Like just go and re-implement a language entirely myself in assembler. He did that and it worked really well, but there's a few bugs in it. And my friend Jim Hawkins fixed those bugs, and I got talking to him on IRC, and he shared his patch for it that he did. And he's one of the guys who started off with the ARM project with me, getting Slackware running on ARM. He fixed the kernel, loads of other things. And there was this guy who wrote the Matthew Godbolt. He wrote it's a JavaScript implementation of the BBC microcomputer, which is like the predecessor to ARM. He wrote a JavaScript version of that to emulate that chipset. And
Man,
I was watching a video of him talking about it, and suddenly I realized that without him, Slackware ARM wouldn't even exist without that guy. I can't imagine
yeah,
that I would have ended up talking to Jim, who was an enabler to make it work in the first place, to fix the kernel and things that I couldn't do, and like we
yeah,
patch GCC and stuff like that. And without that guy, I don't even think it would exist. And I emailed him to say hello and said I really like your game that you wrote as well, and your IRC client. Without you, Slackware wouldn't exist on ARM. And he's like, wow, that's amazing.
yeah. That's funny.
It's funny, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I know anybody that uses Slackware. Uh, Everybody I know is like Debian. They all use Debian or Fedora or just Red Hat for work.
I don't really talk to anyone about computing stuff outside of well this pretty much you guys and the Slackware team on IRC. Actually, that's pretty much it. I don't socialize with anyone that really does computer stuff
Well,
generally.
since I moved to Utah from Chicago, I haven't really talked to anybody. Um, I have friends, but they don't know anything about computers. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. And friends who don't know about computers don't want to know about computers either.
yeah, they don't want to hear you talk about it at all either.
No, no. I did try to learn what was interesting about football at one stage, but it never really floated my boat, that one. Apparently there's some strategy involved, but I couldn't ascertain what it was from watching a game.
Yeah,
It must be just me. I'm not tuned to see those in action, I guess.
yeah. I mean, for me, I don't work, so I can do this stuff during the day and have a lot of free time.
Yeah,
So
good. Well, it's good to have you back now.
Yeah.
You can start testing Slackware on it again because I really want to get it out now. I'm actually satisfied that it's in a good state, whereas before I wasn't. As you
Yeah.
remember, the hardware just kept breaking, didn't it, all the time? It got quite tiring in the end.
Yeah, so
But
I stopped installing stuff on mine just to leave it so that it wouldn't break. Just like
yeah,
wait.
yeah, it's all good now.
Yeah.
I haven't run a system integration test on AArch64. I'll do that at some point. But yeah, you can see I'm doing the change log for it now, so that's going to be in sync with the ARM one.
Cool.
So it's just so I can start testing all of the internal build system to make sure it all does as it's supposed to do.
Yeah, so today I'm gonna check out the change log and then I'm gonna install the Pinebook a bunch of different ways. And I'll just send you an email or something. I guess IRC good?
Yeah, that's all good. Oh, yes,
In the biscuit channel.
that's right. I'm never going to get away from those biscuits, I'll tell you. My senses, but yeah, I'm on the biscuit channel. That's right. Biscuit and tea. That's what we need to power this operation. Is tea and biscuits.
Yeah.
It's a good old British institution, tea and biscuits. Do you know it's really funny actually, right? So I worked at this ex-British. It used to be a part of the sort of British intelligence or British defense. It was part of the British Defence Organisation, but it was privatised. And so they still had, when I worked there, some last vestiges of what it must have been like to work in the UK or work in Britain in the 1970s or something, I think, right? So I was there in the last months that this happened. This lady was pushing this trolley, like this big metal trolley with this big vat of tea on it and boxes with tea, biscuits and stuff. And she wheeled, and so I was there for the first week, and she turned up, in the first couple of days once I was settled in. And I said to my colleague, "What's going on with that?" He said, "Oh, it's the tea. It's the tea wagon. Yeah, the tea lady brings it round at 10 a.m. every day, and we have tea and biscuits." And he goes, and I said, "Really?" Because like I've never seen this before. And I was like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, that's what it is." I'm like, oh. So okay, so everyone stopped, and we all had our tea. It was all free. She just made you the tea and handed it to you. It was brilliant. And then we all went and sat in a room, and we had a chat whilst drinking our tea and eating our biscuits. And I must say, I've never experienced that at an American company. There's never been a tea lady that came around ever.
No,
It was all
you have to
self-service.
do that with beer here. People like
Yeah.
crafted beers.
Do you know, but even though I found it really odd initially, looking back on it, I think it was really good actually, because it's otherwise you go and have dinner with, you have like beer with colleagues afterwards. But actually, if you can just drink tea and eat biscuits during
Anytime, yeah.
work time, then you do get to, it's much more of a palatable thing actually.
Plus, you don't
But
get drunk and you can, you know.
yeah, that's always a good thing I find. Don't want to do that. But yeah, but unfortunately then, about 2 months later, all the budget cuts came and the tea lady was one of the first to go. It was terrible. And then you know that things were going really bad when the toilet roll changed quality. Like, can you imagine a lower grade toilet roll?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like this, Yeah, I left that place. But yeah, I have fond memories of the tea lady and the tea biscuit thing. But so yeah, that's where I'll be doing that. I think I might
Yeah.
ask Robbie about the Slackware Devel mailing list. But we can see how it goes on the forum, to be honest. If like the forum becomes overloaded, if people want to contribute,
Well, there's like 50 versions of Slackware ARM by Mara for all these different boards, and those are the only ones that really get updated now, the threads.
uh,
So,
yeah,
or the
that's
occasional Raspberry Pi stuff.
yeah, that's not I'm not in favor of that distribution approach. So I don't. I mean, in terms of contributing to Slackware AArch64, it needs to be installed with the installer, and that's period. Otherwise, it's not supported. So if it
Yeah,
can't be made to work, that's it. It's not
I mean,
because
on the forum, that's all that's on the forum right now is people are like
okay.
posting those things.
Hmm.
Mailing list might be good.
Oh, okay. Well, let's see. Yeah, we'll see if there's. It just depends to me whether it's how easy it is to find what I'm looking for. That's pretty much all I care about.
Yeah.
Can I see what people are talking about if I'm going to help them or not? If I can find it, yes. If I can't find it, they will
Well, it's
probably.
hard to find things on Linux questions. Like when you have to search, sometimes the database disconnects from the web browser, and you're like
Ah,
get an
okay.
SQL error even. So
Oh,
I don't
does
know.
it? Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe. Okay, maybe a. Yeah, that might be a good idea actually, because if with the mailing list, I haven't checked what because Robbie said he could help put it on slackbuilds.org. I haven't checked whether that has a mailing list archive facility, but if it does, they're usually for Mailman. They're usually pretty good. 'Cause, you
Yeah,
can
they
sort
have
of step
mailman.
through the threads and things, and that's really
Yeah.
helpful. I like looking at. I find that the most easy way when I'm looking at another distribution's mailing list for help or pointers. So if I can have it like that, I think that would be the best approach.
Yeah, something I used to like with mailing lists is when you could download the archive in like a zip file, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
you can grep it.
yeah. So well, you can import it as an mbox into Pine or into your mail client. Yeah, I used
Yeah.
to too. Yeah, I kind of missed the mailing list actually, but I just the old mailing list, but it was on my own hardware and it was running a major domo and it had loads of security issues and things, and I didn't want to go and learn Mailman, so I just
Yeah, email's a pain in the butt.
moved it. Yeah, and then I moved it to the forum because that's where the Slackware official forum is. But it doesn't really lend itself well for development. No, okay,
No,
yeah, you're right. It doesn't at
you
all. I'm
end
just
up fixing things.
yeah, and trying to do code quotes and yeah. Okay, no, I'll ask Robbie about it when it's ready. There's no rush for that. But yeah, so the distro in terms of contributing, it has to be installed with the installer. You can't, that's the way Slackware works. It's not
Mhm.
it's not to have images distributed. I don't like having images distributed because they always end up being configured in a particular way, but that particular way is supposed to be configured through the installer.
As soon as you update it, breaks too.
Well, yeah, and it's also more difficult to set it up how you want because if it's already installed on in a particular fashion, then changing it is not the easiest thing to do. So it's much better to use the installer. So that's um, and yeah, I'm really pleased with the work that we've done on the installer. I
Yeah,
think it's pretty good. I'm really pleased that it has quite
well,
a
it's mostly you.
well, yeah, it's true.
I just find ways to break it.
Well, you did some really good stuff actually with the firmware and things. Ah, you asked me the question right at the start. Did I update the firmware? Whilst looking for an Ethernet patch, I thought it could be a firmware related because it was. I thought perhaps it was something to do with a newer driver and the kernel. I thought that was the first thing I'll check is the new firmware, and I couldn't. No was the answer. I couldn't find anything newer than what we already had at the Manjaro. I think it's the Manjaro Git, one of their GitHub repositories that
Yeah,
you
on
had.
GitLab.
So I also tried to find it to see where Fedora had it in case they had something newer. And because I didn't know where Manjaro got theirs from, so I thought I'll look at another one. But I couldn't find that Fedora even have that firmware. So is what I don't
Yeah,
understand. Either I'm getting
they
it
were
wrong.
leaving some things broken in Fedora till they could find a better patch, or just wait for a newer kernel and have upstream patch it. So
Oh
that's
no,
what they were doing.
I
I
mean for the
remember.
firmware. No, I mean for the firmware binaries for the kernel firmware.
Oh, you mean, yeah, I don't know. I haven't
Because I
seen
thought
anything about that. You're right.
no, I can't find it. But I don't. This is what I don't understand. Maybe it's maybe it's just me because when I looked at this stuff originally, I was like pretty just focused on Slackware and just finding useful things around. But the I couldn't understand whether they really supported the Rock Pro 64. Why would you include patches explicitly for the Rock Pro 64 if you don't care about it? For example, I'm not including certain patches for hardware that I currently no interest in.
Yeah.
I don't really get that.
Well,
So
I mean, I don't know.
maybe someone else is testing it internally and they're, I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
But
But I
keep
couldn't
in
find.
mind, like the Debian guys, they have all these huge ARM servers that they use to build things. So they spend a lot less time, it seems like, building, and then they have more time to add patches and stuff, or write patches or whatever. So
Hmm.
there's that. That's what I mean, just from my perspective, I don't know if that's how it really is, but it's what it seems like. They've got build farms. So.
Oh well, definitely, yeah. I mean, I remember when I saw when I've forgotten the name. There was the original Fedora ARM v5 port. I think was actually performed at a university, and they had a. I saw a photo of all of these Guru plugs. These like the software floating point, what the ARM v5 software floating point machines, and it was like the Shiva plug, but it was slightly better, slightly more better spec. And they had, I don't know, tens and like must have been looking like 50 of these things all flashing away on a shelf, and I was like,
Yeah.
it was like a shrine of I was like looking at it. It's like it was like looking at like a genie of the lamp, and the genie in the lamp just these lights shining at you, and I was thinking I could do with one of those. Get me one of those, please.
Yeah, if I had money, I'd make a Blade server with a bunch of Rock Pros in it and just build stuff like that. But
well, yeah. I mean, the thing is though, is that there's the way that Slackware works is that it's all built. You have a lead machine that is the sort of master machine that takes the updates, and then you can test them on test things on other machines, and that's how that works. So you have a nominated master because it's run by one person. It's always built by one individual, whether it was me in the case of Slackware ARM, or whether it's Patrick in x86, or whether it was Mark for the S390 or David for the Spark port. They're all built by one person. So they know which machine they're using. So what I'm saying is that the reason I say that is because the only thing that really makes a difference in the end is the single master build machine and its spec. Because, for example, I'm still using I'm using disk CC from the Rock Pro 64 and maxing it out. So it's already basically building as fast as it possibly can. The only way to make it faster is to get a faster build machine. Whereas the other distributions don't work that way, because they have a deployment model, don't they? Where they sort of have in the case of Debian, they basically have a chroot which is populated with the latest packages of that sort of channel, or that whatever they call them. They're Lenny and whatever Buster or whatever they're called. Those type
whatever.
releases or whatever. Well, I don't know what those are, or names or versions or whatever. So then it populates the latest packages of those, or whichever versions, and then builds it and then tears the environment down. So then you can have loads of packages building in simultaneously in a way, as long as all the dependencies are resolved after you build them. Whereas we don't have that here, so it's a different kind of arrangement. See what I mean? But to be honest, it's all right for me.
Yeah, I thought about flashing my PlayStation 4 and replacing everything with Slackware, but because it has like a good GPU and stuff, it'd be great for building software, doing different things.
Oh well,
that's what.
Well, you just reminded me, because I've got the Raspberry Pi 4, like we both have, haven't we? With the 8 gig version of it. But mine is still in the box. I know you took yours out, didn't you? Mine is still in the box.
Oh, I had mine out long before I ordered it, or long before you ordered yours.
Yes. Oh, you already had one. Now that's right.
Yeah, I have like a museum of Raspberry Pis.
Oh yeah, of course. So that would be. I don't know about the support for that one, but I mean.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's a can of worms. Don't want to open it.
Yeah, I'll have a look at that. I'm not in a rush for that, to be honest. I'm happy. I'm very happy with the way that you can install on the Rock Pro 64 and on the Pineboard Pro, from what you tell me. Anyway, so
and there's a whole line of hardware from Pine 64 that people can use too. So
yeah, this is the thing though, right? I'm kind of, because let me think. I think it's possible that my Pineboard Pro wouldn't boot, because I think I may have used the wrong version of U-boot. I need to double check, because I think that it has to be built for, so the version of U-boot firmware has to be for you have to have a one version of U-boot for each device, because the the configuration that's baked into U-boot has it looks for a particular DTB name.
Yeah.
And I wondered if that's why my machine kernel panicked, because it was loading the DTB for the Rock Pro 64.
Yeah. That's probably it. That happened to me a long time ago. The
Mm.
DTV.
But
The other
then,
thing that can make it panic is if you wipe the MMC, then the ARM trusted crap is gone. And you know what I mean? The ARM trusted firmware that comes with Manjaro.
uh,
So, and the built-in U-boot that comes with the Pinebook looks for that. So if it can't find it, it won't boot.
oh, oh no, I didn't have
Yeah.
that problem. It booted
Yeah.
Slackware installer,
Oh,
but
okay.
just crashed. Well, it tried to. The kernel panicked as it was booting, but it did boot from the SD card. But
Yeah,
the
that's
reason
not
I
a good
say that is
U-boot.
because just because you mentioned about how many boards there are from Pine 64, and the thing is, if you still require an individual, if you require individual boot assets or any assets really for each device, what that means is that in terms of maintaining it, that is and testing it, that to me again is something. How's that going to work? So, if that's, and I also wonder what do people really want to do with AArch64 hardware anyway? Like, why would you pick one particular thing over one particular bit of hardware over another? If you just want a desktop type, if you want to use it like that, use a Rock Pro 64. If you want to have a server, use a Rock Pro 64. Do you see what I
Yeah.
mean? If you want to use a phone, don't use Slackware. Use something that's geared up to a distribution that's geared up to being a phone or some
Yeah.
supportable device. Make your life easy. I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
suggesting people shouldn't play around. I mean, for fun, for sure. But in terms of,
Like
I
business, right?
actively, no, I actively encourage people playing around for fun. But in terms of maintaining something like at my level, it has to be a minimum number. It has to be. It's basically a balance between what's cheap, what's affordable, what's stable, and how useful it is. Like in the case of the Rock Pro 64 and the Pinebook Pro, they tick pretty much everything, you
Yeah.
see, that I'm interested in. So it's kind of,
Well, yeah, and that's why, like if we were looking for a line of small board computers that we could uh, support, it would be Raspberry Pis because they have like really good.
mm,
They, I don't know. Maybe the hardware is not better, but the software is further along than like the Pine 64 stuff. So
okay.
there'd be a lot less work involved getting it working, I think, you know,
Mm,
with U-boot and all that. It was just kind of weird because when I was looking at it a few months ago, I had to basically chain load the uh, firmware for the Raspberry Pi from U-boot, and then it
oh yeah.
booted from there. Yeah.
Okay.
So you
Well,
still had to have all the same files in the boot directory. It just you're using
mm,
U-boot instead.
okay. Uh, okay. Well, it just needs to be looked at. I mean, I just like the idea of with the way that I've done it now, it just works nicely. It just changes the X Linux config and it works. It's
Yeah.
very, very simple, and I like that. But I'll have to have a look at it and see if there's any way of making the Raspberry Pi 4 have U-boot directly. I do. There might be some work in that area that can be used. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would be good. It would be good to get support for the Raspberry Pi 4. I wouldn't.
Because
I wouldn't be
they're
interested.
great for little network devices, like for different tasks.
Hmm.
People like them for that. Oh,
Yeah, I think you just need to look at it and see in the future how it works. Once I've got Slackware AArch64 out of the door and seen, got a bit of feedback on it, I'll start having a look at it and see what we can do. Uh, but I mean, it has to use the upstream kernel. So, but I haven't seen that. I didn't see Fedora applying any Raspberry Pi patches in the 5.14 kernel for the. And usually there used to be
well,
some.
I was booting with the Slackware ARM kernel, but I had to have all their firmware files
Okay.
in the boot directory.
Well, I don't mind that. That's fine. It's more
Yeah.
about like, that kind of thing is fine. Having some extra assets around, I don't have a problem with that. It's more about the workflow from the software point of view? How does it, when you do a
Yeah,
kernel
the overhead, you know.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Do I have to code some exceptions for it, or can it boot off? Can it have an X4 partition for /boot and select the kernel via symlinks and like it does? And
Yeah,
how
I
does
think it needs a VFAT, FAT32.
Yeah, I
So
don't like that. I mean, that's just really old school. Why can't they just make it better?
yeah,
Come
or
on,
like
guys.
turn it in, or like move it to like an EFI partition or
Yeah,
something more modern.
I mean, what operating system do these people actually think are running on this device? Like Windows? I mean,
Well, they do have a version that runs Windows 10. So
do they? Do
yeah,
they really? I didn't know that. Okay, fair enough.
they
I'll take
did
it
years.
back.
They did last time I looked. It's been a while though. So
Okay. Well, there was a Windows ARM version, wasn't it? For was it Windows RT or something like that?
yeah, the Internet of Things image I had.
Okay. Well, yeah. We'll have to look at it. I don't want to. The thing is, if it's lots of work to the installer and lots of other things, I'm not sure I particularly want to tackle that because I like the way it is. But we'll see
Yeah.
how it goes. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Cool. I think there was something else I was going to say. No, I've forgotten what it was.
Yeah, the HDMI doesn't work on it on the Pinebook in the installer.
Does it not? Okay.
I don't know if it's because my monitor is now recognized or what, but I'll have to look.
Unplug the monitor and reconnect it. See if that
Well, it's
works.
on.
Yeah, of course. I always do things
No,
like
I
that.
mean, well, it's. I was just asking if you wanted if it's on or not while you wanted that to happen. Try a different port. There you go.
I know I've had the issue before where I've disconnected it and reconnected it on my Rock Pro 64, and then that lit up the HDMI. But that was one of the things that happened in one of the kernel releases. It just went that way. Whereas previously it just booted. You could see in one of the YouTube videos, it just worked as soon as you turned it on, pretty much.
Yeah.
But so yeah, okay. Um, that said, well, if you can you install it using a serial adapter on the Pinebook Pro then?
Well,
Because
once it boots up past the kernel into the setup prompt, it shows hit enter to begin or whatever. So the installer boots and you can see it on the Pinebook monitor.
oh, okay, well, that's
Yeah,
fine.
but you can't see any of the kernel messages while it's booting or anything. So
Oh no, no, that's configuration because the I the yeah, the initial output's going to the serial console, that's why. And then it's only when it gets to once it's finished booting that you get it. Yeah. That's where I left it. And I was concerned that if you boot it with HDMI, it's all coming back to me now. I was concerned that you would think it's not working because you've
oh
seen
no.
nothing for quite a while.
Yeah, no, I knew it
And
was working.
you can't, I don't believe you can duplicate it. I did try, but you can't because it's not supported. That's why. So, but I
Yeah.
thought I had it working on ARM for years. I thought that I saw on the HDMI monitor exactly the same as on the serial console, but actually I haven't. There's always a discrepancy. I just don't use the HDMI enough on ARM to have really noticed that. But I don't believe there's a way of being able to duplicate it. Unfortunately, I did look into it.
Yeah,
Because
I think I was messing around with the kernel boot line. But I
yeah,
don't
you can.
remember what I changed at this point.
Well, you'd have
So
to change. You have to change the console equals. If you look in the X Linux config in the
oh yeah,
installer,
yeah.
it's
Yeah,
in
I
there. You
remember.
can just change it. I think if you just remove it completely, I think you'll get the output on HDMI. You don't actually need a console equals. You don't need a console setting there, so you can remove
Yeah.
it. But the thing is that I can't because I'm not. I'm only going to provide one image, and it has to have a hard setting. And if you don't set it to the serial console, then I think it means you can't use the serial adapter at all. If I believe. So yeah, it's going to have to be like that. But
Wait,
I don't know
maybe I
why.
should unplug the serial adapter and see if the HDMI works after that.
Uh, it won't make any difference.
It
It'll be
won't?
exact.
Okay.
No, it'll be exactly the same. It doesn't care if you're actually consuming the data from the serial console or not.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. I think that's kind of settled it. Actually, I'll just I'll make it. Yeah, I'll look into these serial adapters and make. I think I'll document the installer using a serial adapter. I mean, it can't be that difficult to get them working. I've got loads that work now, so it's just a case of getting this Moina one, which you've got working. So I'm sure
Yeah.
it's working. Yeah, because then it solves the issue, and plus the fact I do think having them available is a very good idea. You know, even if you don't, you know, have it continuously connected to a machine.
Well, I mean, as far as the Pinebook goes, it boots into a prompt for the installer, so that's all people need. I mean, they don't have to see kernel messages and stuff. At least that's my opinion.
Fair enough. Well,
The Pinebook, yeah, I mean, if it boots, it's going to be the same as any other ARM device for Slackware, right? So
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll see how far I get. If I can't get the serial adapter working easy, I won't document it, or yeah, I'll see. Cool, but at least it seems to work, so that's good. In summary, I think Slackware AArch64 is gearing up to be released in a current or a sort of alpha current state pretty soon, I reckon. Once I finish the documentation.
All right.
And updated some of the build system to do the AAA libraries package. I need to fix that one up and make that improve that. Yeah, it's all in good form. I'm pretty pleased with it. All right, Brent, it's been quite a long episode. Right,
Okay.
man. Have a good day. Good to talk to you. I'll see you on
All right, you
IRC.
too. All right.
Bye.
Bye.